It's 2024, and that means all new games on the horizon. Of course, we have the looming presence of Dungeons & Dragons New Edition, but you probably don't need me to tell you about that. Instead, I'm here to focus on some other amazing RPGs that span everything from classic fantasy adventures to cyberpunk quests, vampire hunting, multiverse hopping, style showdowns with karaoke and cooking thrown in for good measure. So, whatever kind of experience you're looking to bring to the table in 2024, I'm Maddie from Dicebreaker, and these are 18 new RPGs to look forward to.
This video is sponsored by Veil of the Eternal Night, bringing Castlevania-inspired vampire horror to D&D 5e. Kickstarting from the 30th of January, check the link in the description below for more.
King Arthur Pendragon, the RPG that lets you play as valiant knights in Arthurian England, is getting a new edition heralded as the ultimate one this year. Chaosium, the publisher responsible for releasing the fantasy series, revealed that the title's co-designer Greg Stafford had begun work on a revised version of Pendragon 10 years ago before passing in 2018. Since then, the rule set has gone through multiple stages of development that reflects nearly 3 decades of refinement. A free quick start and a starter set did come out last year, but we're eagerly awaiting the full version to jump into some shining armor and create a legacy in 2024. Pendragon has always offered a more philosophical and politically focused alternative to the more traditional hack-and-slash style TTRPGs. It allows players to roleplay as complex characters, attempting to navigate a medieval world filled with difficult decisions. If you're itching for the latest take on Arthurian legends, or just want a high fantasy tabletop role-playing alternative to Dungeons & Dragons, be sure to keep your eyes peeled for the King Arthur Pendragon 6th edition this year. Darrington Press is the studio from Critical Role and has already started to release some exciting games, the latest of which is their own fantasy system, Daggerheart. From the creator of Alice is Missing, Spencer Stark, it looks to be a fantasy RPG that focuses on collaborative storytelling and accessibility first and foremost. The title will be launched as a sort of RPG in a box, with players getting various accessories alongside the game's rulebook, all of which are intrinsically tied to how Daggerheart works. Players use cards as well as dice to create their characters and play the game, as well as a collection of modifier tokens designed to keep track of events and changes. It's a fully unique setting and game, meaning you don't need to be a Critical Role watcher to get stuck in. Stark has stated that the goal of Daggerheart is to ensure that players won't need to leaf through the game's rulebook to do things like level up. Instead, you can use the game's detailed character sheets and cards to find all of that information. If you're a fan of Critical Role but find Dungeons & Dragons too intimidating, then Daggerheart might just be the RPG for you. The Stormlight Archive is a fantasy series written by Brandon Sanderson that focuses on characters bonded with otherworldly beings that lets them gain extraordinary powers. It's a sweeping epic that has a rich world ripe for an adaptation into RPG form. The game will enable players to create their own characters within the world of Roshar before taking them through their own personal narratives. You can choose from a variety of classes, pick a spren from the Orders of Knights Radiant, and join factions like the Artifabrians, Assassins, and Shardbearers. The Stormlight Archive RPG will be based on the D20 gameplay system, similar to D&D, as well as having a plot die that sets up lots of potential for drama to unfold. The outcome of the plot die is intended to open new opportunities or create complications for players to manage. Lovers of the Stormlight Archive series should not miss this upcoming RPG adaptation. Though there's not an official Monster Hunter tabletop RPG out there yet, Wilderfeast offers fans of the series the next best thing. The upcoming roleplay game sees players stalking and defeating enormous monsters, all in the service of securing themselves a delicious meal. As in Monster Hunter, these creatures won't go down easy, meaning that players will have to carefully plan and execute their hunt. Wilderfeast's one land is home to an entire ecosystem of huge wildlife, who will put up a serious fight against anyone stupid enough to go toe-to-toe with them. The party happens to be just the right level of brave and done to take these monsters on, using their various kitchen utensils and existing pantry of foods to power them. Characters will get different buffs depending upon what they consume before a hunt, with each monster presenting their own unique challenge. To balance the effect the party's hunting has on the environment though, players will also be encouraged to feed and rehabilitate any monsters they encounter outside of combat, which offers a positive message of sustainability. Fans of the Monster Hunter series, Shadow of the Colossus, and other stories wherein people fight gigantic creatures will surely enjoy Wilderfeast. If you're a fan of the likes of Final Fantasy, Chrono Trigger, and Dragon Quest, then Reich is definitely a 2024 tabletop RPG you should be paying attention to. It has players exploring a world inhabited by all sorts of strange and wonderful people and creatures. From magical sages to rages to princesses, the setting of Reich is a paradise for players who love fantasy stories originating from Japan. Built on the D20 gameplay system, you'll be playing everything from classic champions to a murder princess. Oh yeah. Along the way, the player characters will be encountering all sorts of creatures, like adorable little pudge grubs and even mountable animals such as the chocobo-like Rockado. And of course, some deadly monsters to make use of all the cool items you pick up along the way. There's a wide variety of cultures and civilizations to see too, like biomechanoids and cat people, as well as classic fantasy species like dwarves, elves, and goblins. If you have a deep fondness for JRPG video games and anime, then Reich could be your new favorite tabletop role-playing game of 2024. If your real-life job is failing to provide the thrills and chills you seek, then why not apply to work for the Triangle Agency? In this horror role-playing game, players become employees of a strange and exploitative company that offers investigative services to people plagued by paranormal goings-on. As members of the Triangle Agency, players are responsible for finding and solving the root of any weird events, all while attempting to survive the dangers they'll encounter. Inspired by the likes of Control, The X-Files, and online horror phenomenon of the SDP Foundation, the setting mixes corporate and capitalist satire with reality-bending horror. You'll tell stories of attempting to find work-life balance whilst dealing with otherworldly threats. Every character has their own bonded anomaly that grants them a roster of extraordinary powers they'll use to tackle both the paranormal and more mundane aspects of their role. Campaigns of Triangle Agency generally last around 10 to 15 sessions, with storylines focusing on the strange tension between capturing and containing weird entities and the drudgery of corporate employment. For a satirical twist on the paranormal investigative setting, take a deeper look at Triangle Agency. Through the Hedgerow is a dark fantasy RPG inspired by authors like Neil Gaiman and Philip Pullman. The upcoming RPG has players becoming a Knight of the Briar Company, an ancient organization duty-bound to protect humanity against sinister otherworldly forces. As a champion of light, players will need to work together against the agents of the dark who seek to spread chaos and destruction across the land. This battle will take place across the annals of British history, from the medieval Dark Ages to the societal upheaval of the 17th century to the modernisation of the Industrial Revolution and the Second World War. Each era players explore will come with its own unique challenges, both from the dark forces players will be fighting to the natural chaos of human society. Players can control characters who are part of the strange Fae, magical creatures that can range from talking birds to animated scarecrows and friendly spiders, or a mortal who has found themselves spirited away from their own world and into that of the Knights of the Briar Company. In order to stave off the darkness, players will be searching for powerful artifacts, protecting important locations, and generally outsmarting their enemies. Who could be anyone from Fey Lords, witch hunters, hags, and a necromancer called Raven Margrave. If you're a fan of things like The Sandman, His Dark Materials, Legend of the Guardians, and Alice in Wonderland, and are looking to mix things up with the innovative checks and challenges system, then Through the Hedgerow is an RPG that's worth paying attention to. In this RPG, you have one main mission: to drink all of Hitler's blood. You play as vampire commandos working together to carve a bloody path across occupied Paris in World War II. Although this Paris is totally made up, which means you can have action-packed sessions across iconic landmarks as well as whatever feels fun. Characters are all pre-generated, meaning you can jump into a game instantly and cover everything from undead cowboys to demonologist socialites and a man who's more bat than anything else. Games are intended to be quick, with a full campaign only taking 3 gloriously gory sessions to complete. Along the way, you'll be hunting fascists and feeding on their leaders to level up, dabbling in blood magic and other ways to bring your enemies to a creatively bloody end. It looks to be fast to get to the table with fun, frantic action that'll make you feel like a deadly vampire as a player, and a lively, freaky world to let loose on players if you want to run it. It comes from designer Grant Howitt, who's best known for the likes of Honey Heist, Spire, and Heart, plus absolutely incredible art that sucks you into the comic-style universe of a very weird war. So, some publishers have just too many exciting things coming out for me to pick just one game, and Son of Oak, the creators of myth-based superhero game City of Mist, have a jam-packed year ahead of them. First up is Tokyo Otherscape, a mashup of similar legendary superpowers with a neon cyberpunk setting. You play as augmented mercenaries with the power of spirits and gods that take on corporations, gangs of yokai, and demons from cyberspace. It looks to combine the futuristic megacities we know from classic cyberpunk stories with Japanese myths and legends in some really fun ways. It's of course inspired by the likes of Ghost in the Shell and Akira, seeing you explore Tokyo and cyberspace, have vehicle chases and gunfights throughout them, and get to the heart of what it means to be human. The Kickstarter funded last year, so we should hope to see the book sometime in 2024. However, looking further ahead though, we also have the recently announced Legend in the Mist. This is the first fantasy foray for the publisher. Based on the same engine as City of Mist, the RPG is set to feel like playing through an Arthurian legend or Lord of the Rings, living out your favourite fantasy fiction. Moving away from D&D's hack and slash dungeon crawls, narrative takes precedent as you build evolving characters of different levels that more accurately reflect fellowships we see in books and films. As Son of Oak rightly put, who has more influence in The Lord of the Rings, Frodo or Gandalf? Legend in the Mist would be a chance to lean into story without worrying who has healing or tactics at every turn. Plus, the flexible tag system is something I'm really excited to see in a fantasy setting. This allows you to pick descriptions of things you can do instead of hard numbers. It's still really early days, but there's already a lot to be excited for, so I can't wait to see more as the Mists part way on their new fantasy RPG. Okay, this isn't going to be a game for everyone, but if you like weird freaks hanging out in the sewers, then join me in getting excited for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles RPG coming this year. This is technically a remake, which we don't typically include on these lists, but seeing as though the original first hit shelves in 1985, I think I can make an exception. The game allows you to go beyond the turtles and make every kind of mutant, from household pets to exotic zoo animals, and train them all with weapons, gear, fighting techniques, and even psychic powers. You live in the shadow of the human world, exploring the mutants, robots, aliens, and other dimensions as you stop threats to your neighborhood, save the city, or get lost in other times. And whatever kind of wacky hijinks you want. The game is based on the comics, which definitely have a darker, more serious edge to the classic cartoon, but there's nothing stopping you leaning more or less into the weird and wonderful. I mean, just scroll through their Kickstarter page and you'll see the Terror Bears. Terrifying, kind of cute, and definitely deadly. So if you're looking for a wacky addition for your game nights and have some serious nostalgia for the crime-fighting turtles, then keep an eye on this RPG in 2024. The creators of Cyberpunk and the Witcher RPG are back with a brand new game about multiverse-hopping ninjas that shrugs off some of the crunch of previous titles in favor of jumping into the action quickly. Shadowscar sees you step into a high fantasy setting inspired by 17th century Japan as secret agents tasked with stopping interdimensional monsters. It draws on yokai and other Japanese myths to pack its bestiary with weird and deadly foes that now spread across multiple worlds after the Japanese goddess of death tore a rift in reality. As agents, you need to track down and stop the demons in every dimension. From 5th Street, a noir setting of Great Depression America with a meta presence that sees rain pour and music play like you're in an old film, to the steampunk steel court that sees fantasy tech spur on the Industrial Revolution, or the near-future moon base of Refuge where humanity escaped after a nuclear disaster. With all of this, Shadowscar combines strange tales from Japanese folklore with anime-style action and adventure. We don't have an exact release date yet, but we can expect to jump in from our own universe in Shadowscar sometime in 2024. Tyler from Possible Worlds Games is always doing exciting things in the RPG space, and 2024 is no different. The Details of Otherscape is a game born from the collaboration of a comic artist and author to create a world that Tyler then adapted into something to play. It follows a caravan of people in search of a new home that uses dominoes to tell the story. The Kickstarter goes live in February, so there'll be a chance to learn more of what kind of journey you'll be take when you play. But so far, on vibes alone, I'm sold. The art is weird and surreal, but together feels grounded. It's a world I'm curious to explore, with mysterious figures atop mountains and large moons in the sky, while nature weaves throughout as a theme I'm sure will be central to the game. However, that's not the only thing we'll be able to see from Possible Worlds games in the near future. Bad 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 is another RPG coming up and is for anyone that loves fanfic and pop culture just a little too much. You play as disillusioned teens decked out in cute streetwear, harboring a deep frustration with the world, hopping across all of your favorite settings. Crash into the worlds you love from comics, films, video games, books, and fix the corruption that's been seeping into them. I've got an early demo copy and already love how easy it is to pull out and play at any moment, as the entire thing is currently based on a deck of cards. It's still very much in development without a release date yet, but it's definitely something I'm looking forward to and world hopping into when it's out. If, like me, your first step whenever you start a new RPG is to run to Pinterest and put together a board of cute art and outfits for your character, then 2024 is our year. Big Grave Fashion Fantasy is the chance to put all of your dream clothing pins to work. Your goal is to become a style icon in a neon-drenched world, teaming up with trendsetters and roaming the districts for the perfect fashion find. All the while, you'll need to face off rivals, grow your style, and stop plans to level the city that you love. It's a chance to have your love of dress up at the forefront of a game. You can mix and match from style archetypes, creating special combos and effects to perfect your look loadout, then face off in style showdown battles. I'm so intrigued to see how Big Grave Fashion Fantasy will play when it's on the table, and luckily there's a quick start coming early this year, along with the Kickstarter launching in March. Weird, wonderful, very vibesy, and honestly probably too cool for most of us, Big Grave Fashion Fantasy is definitely my style crush of 2024. Set in an alternate 16th century, this swashbuckling adventure sees you journey across Mediterranean seas, the Middle East, and beyond in a story driven by tarot cards. You'll be sneaking texts out from under oppressive regimes, using ancient magic to protect an island of outcasts, and fighting to topple empires. The Hidden Isle draws from the real world, taking you from London to Istanbul as you stop torturous inquisitors and European colonists, and a fantasy world as you wield blood magic, open the mysteries of the stars, and peer into the future. You play as an agent of Discordia, stepping into the middle of it all and trying to help those who need it most. The classes draw from classic fantasy tropes with swordsmen, occultists, sharpshooters, and roguish scoundrels, giving you a familiar footing as you step into a very new fantasy adventure. And everything you do is guided by tarot. Character creation, skill checks, peering into the future, all of it is determined by card draws instead of dice rolls. And if you're inclined to picking up pretty tarot decks, there is one up for grabs alongside the RPG too. The art on the cards and throughout the books is truly breathtaking. Each piece has a lively, ornate style that draws you into the world instantly. So if you're looking for the most beautiful adventure you can have in 2024, the Hidden Isle has to be it. With Wheels, the self-proclaimed king of karaoke in this office, this next RPG certainly got pulled out for a reason. Jukebox, the karaoke musical TTRPG, does pretty much exactly what it says on a tin. A tabletop role-playing game that has players bursting out into their favourite musical numbers and pop hits to further along their rules like GM the story in the vein of jukebox musicals like Mamma Mia or We Will Rock You. What started as a 5e module has now grown into a 3-year labour of love for a full standalone experience wrapped in some pretty Broadway-themed art in lush colours. If you've ever wondered what the musical episode of your long-running campaign would be like, or if you'll take any opportunity to force your friends to listen to you sing, then this game was essentially made for you. It promises a quick and easy learning experience that requires only bits you already have at home, like paper, pencils, and laptop or phone, presumably to play your backing tunes. For those that have always lusted for the spotlight or are just massive fans of musicals and singing songs, Jukebox is crowdfunding toward the end of January, but you can try out a Ashcan version on itch right now. Video game TTRPGs are becoming more and more prevalent as video game studios cotton on to the big cash cow that is licensed tabletop games, and two big names will be joining the ranks in 2024. Diablo, the action RPG dungeon crawler that's been around since the series' antagonist was a literal letter D on an ASCII grid layout, will be joining its forefathers as a tabletop role-playing game via Glass Cannon Unplugged. Details are relatively scarce, but Diablo Tabletop Edition promises fast and satisfying combat in its grimdark fantasy world when the gates of hell open in 2024. Alongside it is a tabletop RPG adaptation of one of the most prolific video game series of the modern era, Assassin's Creed. An action-adventure set in some of the world's most popular and interesting periods of history, from the Crusades to the age of piracy or even ancient Egypt and Greece, does sound like a fun setting for your tabletop's newest campaign. The question for us will be how Simon balanced the fun and fantastical takes on historical settings with the relatively dull meta plotlines of AC's dystopian future that usually have some of us mashing the skip dialogue button in the game's source material. A lot of TTRPGs, especially those in fantasy settings, tend to focus on the game's protagonists going on grand adventures, traipsing across the fantastical realm their game is set upon, with new vistas and locales to gawp at almost every session. Players might stop in on a town to help with their problems for a few weeks, or even spend an extended period in dungeons under the earth, but it's rare for a game of this genre to have players root themselves in a single small settlement for an entire campaign's runtime. Stonetop describes itself as a hearth fantasy, wherein players take the roles of protectors of a single isolated village in an Iron Age low fantasy setting. Community is the name of the game in Stonetop, focusing on the tight-knit villagers of this small and quaint place beset by dangers from all sides and only prospering through continued collaboration. Stonetop itself has a playbook much like the players and will evolve and develop over time to show the progress of its peoples and the scars of past traumas your players will have faced. Built on and powered by the Apocalypse skeleton, Stonetop should be simple enough to learn for new players, but sounds as though it really rewards those that like to build the setting around them as they play. After already funding on Kickstarter, Stonetop is set to release this year and is available for pre-order right now. If a brand new edition of D&D has you more worried than excited, and you're looking for a new system to fill a similar shaped hole on your games table, then this new TTRPG from an ex-5e designer might tickle your fancy. Using a similar D20 based system, D&D fans shouldn't have too much trouble sliding over to Shadow of the Weird Wizard. Based on the hard as nails and dripping dark fantasy of Shadow of the Demon Lord, the designer's previous title that was described tonally as Evil Dead meets Diablo, Weird Wizard looks to deliver a slightly lighter and more heroic tone to the tabletop. Fans of the mechanics from the former but not necessarily the vibes might be better placed with this new setting. As far as the game goes from an outsider's perspective, you can expect your standard fantasy fare with monsters, magic, and dungeons. The book contains what you might guess from an ex-D&D developer with numerous schools of magic, a full bestiary, and equipment tables galore. If you're looking for a game that delivers on what D&D attempts to bring to the table, but from a slightly less monolithic developer, then Shadow of the Weird Wizard might be your number one on the radar for 2024. Realistically, I could make this list like 100 games long, but I just cannot fit them all in, although I really wish I...
do it!
What?
We can do it!
Okay.
There's more games!
Okay.
There's more games! Dollenwood is an old school RPG in a weird woodland inspired by British folktales and fairy stories. It's a place of fairy glades and crystal caves and bramble patches and forgotten ruins and all the lost treasure and monsters within them. What else is there? Oh, there's mythic Bastion Land, which explores a world before Into the Odd of dreamlike hex crawls and sworn oaths that see you play young knight errants like seeking glory. There's Warrengard, which is a game about fantasy dragon riders and found family, which is very cute. The island of Dr. Moreau describes itself as a dystopian love island for furries set in 2005. There's a new edition of Cyber Rats coming out, which is a sort of tactical XCOM style RPG with anthropomorphic rat characters and like weird Saturday morning cartoon vibes. Mork Org places the beloved heavy metal RPG into the mindless drudgery of like the office environment. There's so many games. There's so many games coming out this year. I'm sure there are tons more RPGs that deserve a shout out, but that's where hopefully you can come in as well by dropping the games that you're most excited about launching in 2024 down in the comments below. By the way, have you subscribed to Dicebreaker? I didn't just almost break my vocal cords for you to not. Please hit the subscribe button, click like, click the bell icon, you get notified whenever we put a new video live. We've got new videos here every week, and we do daily videos on TikTok now. They also get posted to YouTube Shorts. You can go to dicebreaker.com for daily news, reviews, and updates. But look, until next time, enjoy filling your wish list with so many games, and I'm very sorry if we've bankrupted you, but have a lovely day.